a really great way for Michigan to get back on track. Number 18 Michigan beating number 11 USC 27-24 in this game. Let's go over the highest graded players from this game. Let's start off with the winning team. That is the Michigan Wolverines. Their highest graded player, Dalton, was easily Josiah Stewart. 95.8 grade. He was fan-freaking-tastic in this game. Derek Moore, his edge partner at number 2 at 87.3. Jair Hill, 85.5. Will Johnson at 84.6. And Rayshawn Benny at an 82.6. And let's go over to the USC side of the ball with their 5 highest grade players. Jalen Smith, number 1 at 83.8. Eric Gentry, number 2 at 83.2. Gavin Meyer at a 74.3. Jacoby Covington at 73.9. And Anthony Lucas at a 73.5. Dalton, 5 highest graded players for each team are all defensive players. It really was the defensive game for both of these squads. But for you, what was the stat that really told the story of this really, really close, tight game that Michigan ended up winning?
Well, we came into this knowing, especially with Alex Orji at quarterback, that there was a contrast of style here, right? It's at USC has Miller Moss, and they're trying to throw the football to Deuce Robinson and Zachariah Branch and all the receivers. And you had Michigan. They were going to run the ball just about every play. I believe Orji only threw the ball, I think he had 7 pass attempts it was. And even down to the very end of the game, the last 3 minutes, they were running the ball. But the stories at Michigan, look, 300 rushing yards, 6.8 yards per carry. They just lined up and they played good defense, and they were going to run the ball until they couldn't anymore. And as long as they weren't down by 2 scores, they were going to keep running the ball. And I'll just roll it in with my most impressive here with Kalel Mullings. I mean, he's honestly been their most consistent offensive player all season. 159 yards yesterday, 100 after contact, 5 missed tackles forced, and an 82 rushing grade. Him and Donovan Edwards are a really good pair, but Mullings has taken the lead role in this backfield. And Michigan still have a lot of issues in the passing game. I would be very worried if they fell behind by 2 scores, but as long as they're within a score and their defense can give them a chance. Yesterday you had Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, all of their best players on defense showed up, but it has to be supported by something on offense. And honestly, that 300 number, that was a number I kind of thought about before this game, that I was like, well, they're going to have to run for 300 yards, aren't they? Like they did. I think they got close to, or they were over that mark against Fresno State last week. Arkansas State last week. This is just how Michigan has to win ball games. The quarterback situation, the passing game, the pass protection, the receivers. Colston Loveland, to win this game with Colston Loveland being out and have just knowing you have no passing threat at all. I think it was 23 passing yards on the day. Really impressive stuff, but it starts with their run game, and if you're playing Michigan, that's where you focus. But Kalel Mullings and their run game was just spectacular yesterday.
That 65-yard run Mullings had, I mean, they would not have scored a touchdown on that drive if he didn't have that run, because they were quite literally had no passing game, and if he didn't break off that long run with about 2 minutes left, they would have had no chance of winning that game, honestly. So Kalel Mullings was fantastic. Dalton, my stat that I need to know in this game was that the USC offensive line, 3.4 pass blocking grade in this game. And really, this what I wanted to talk about this is, last year and even 2 years ago, when people talk about Caleb Williams, like, oh, the offensive line is terrible. It really wasn't that bad. It was because the offensive line had to protect for a quarterback that was constantly bailing from the pocket and a quarterback who constantly was holding the ball for 3.5+ seconds. This time, you could blame the offensive line. The offensive line was destroyed in this game. Dalton, USC had 3 offensive tackles who played in this game. All 3 of them had a pass blocking grade of 0.0. They couldn't block Josiah Stewart or Derek Moore if their life depended on it in this game. Michigan had 27 pressures in this game. 22 of them came within 2.5 seconds. 3 of the 4 sacks came within 2.5 seconds. 16 of the 27 pressures came within 2 seconds. Miller Moss had no time back there in this game, and USC allowed a pressure on 39% of their dropbacks and a sack or a hit on 16% of the dropbacks. And in the run game, too, it wasn't much better. 40.1 run blocking grade, and overall, the offensive line had a 27 overall grade. The next worst in the PFF college era was a 44.9 offensive line grade against Alabama in 2016. So, again, 3.4 pass blocking grade for USC in this one. There's only 3 worse by a Power 4 offensive line in the PFF era. And the next worst by USC offensive line is a 32.3. So you're talking about a 32.3. It's almost 11 times better than what USC had in this game. So it really was an incredible performance by Michigan's defensive line, specifically Josiah Stewart, you mentioned before. 8 pressures, 2 sacks, 23% 34% pressure rate. Derek Moore, 6 pressures, 30% pass rush win rate. Both of them had a 90-plus pass rushing grade in this game as well. And it really was the Michigan edge defenders dominating, and the USC offensive line, specifically the tackles, couldn't do anything. And really, it was impressive that, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, you would think if the defensive line's going to dominate, it's going to be those two. No, it wasn't. It was Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore that were the best players on the field, not the two defensive tackles that might be first-round picks.
Yeah, and I mean, those two did a nice job, too. I thought, especially in the run game, USC really, it took them a while to find anything in the run game. But considering that pass protection, and I know they lost the game, but they did not lose this game because of Miller Moss. Do we have any doubt that Miller Moss is an NFL quarterback in some capacity? I mean, to bring them down, to get him a lead in the last 5 minutes with pass protection like that, gutsy throws under pressure all day. I think that's one thing we have to do here first. And he graded right around a 68, but we have to commend Miller Moss for the effort that he gave. And I know the pick 6 to Will Johnson was bad, but even then, to come back after that pick 6 that made it 20-10 and still come down and score 2 touchdowns to take the lead in the last, 4 minutes it was? 3 minutes? Yep. I don't think anybody who blames Miller Moss for anything here is dead wrong. They just, everything around him collapsed. And him and also I mentioned individual plays. That play Woody Marks made when Kenneth Grant was returning that's one of the greatest plays I've ever seen.
Yep. He balled out.
Kenneth Grant
in that game.
Kenneth Grant is 340 pounds, and he's streaking down the field with the football in his hands, and Woody Marks just rips it away from him. That is one of the best plays. If you look NFL tape, if guys are looking for like that football character sort of thing, Woody Marks has got it. That's you can watch that one play. I mean, at the time saved the game for them, because the game on that fumble, the game could have been over. I think there's Moss and Marks and some of the bigger names for USC put in a really valiant effort here, and they just didn't finish the game. And even making that huge comeback and not finishing the game, I think USC fans and anyone associated with the team is going to be hurting for a while.
Oh, absolutely. And Woody Marks, like I said, 40.1 run blocking grade for the offensive line, and Woody Marks is still breaking off runs in that game. So he had a really, really good game. Miller Moss is fantastic as well. Again, we have an interview with Miller Moss that just dropped a couple days ago. Awesome kid, and he balled out in that game. Not balled out, but he played his heart out.
I think if I redid my quarterback list, at least for the Power 5, probably the whole country, I think he would have to be in the top 10.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
He is just an absolute gamer, and he's super accurate. He's tough as nails. I mean, I can't say enough about Miller Moss. They just need to get better in the trenches.
Really quickly, Dalton, does your opinion of Michigan change after this? Do you think this is like a playoff contender now, or how do you think about Michigan?
I mean, it's going to be harder to beat teams like Ohio State and Oregon like this, because Oregon's more complete on offense and Ohio State's just more complete in general, especially defensively, than USC. USC, this was the game, and a lot of the people, anybody who was picking Michigan to win this game said, well, this is USC's first Big Ten game, and it's in the big house, and they got to get used to Big Ten trench play. Well, that was true. That was true. But teams that are more used to that style, how does this work even against teams like in Iowa or somebody like that, where they already play that style of ball? So look, Michigan, I think to make the playoff and to get to 10 or even 11 wins, they still have to find a passing game. They have to find something. But this is the blueprint. This is what they're going to have to do. And you mentioned that defensive line. They're in that small circle of teams that we could say maybe have the best defensive line in the country. So far, they've been showing, and Josiah Stewart especially. That looks like a first-round pick, doesn't it? They may have 3 first-round picks on their D-line.
Yeah, shout out Marcus in the chat. He said, this is the Michigan defense I thought we'd see against Texas. Yeah, this is the exact defense we thought we'd see against Texas. This is why when we previewed them in our season preview, we said, hey, listen, the offense has a lot of question marks, and it still does. But this defense is a national championship caliber defense, and they proved that in this game against USC. So, yeah, Michigan, shout out them for getting back on track with a 3-point win over number 11 USC.